This is a story about courage. It's about a hero's journey, and it's about winning more than just games. This is the story of Maya Moore, who many believe to be the greatest power forward in the history of the WNBA. But this story isn't about all the trophies she won or the accolades she received. Because here's the thing, she gave all of that up. She left the game she loved at the top of her game because she heard a different calling. The call to greatness. From the time she could walk, Moore was already dominating. She led her high school team to 3 consecutive state championships and became one of the most decorated players in the history of UConn. In 2011, she was drafted No. 1 by the Minnesota Lynx, and from there, she became one of the faces of the WNBA. She led the Lynx to 4 WNBA championships and earned the title of Finals MVP twice. In 2017, she made it to the Olympics and won gold with Team USA, but even as she accomplished all these great things, something felt empty inside. Her teammates and coaches knew she was gifted, knew she was destined for greatness, but they also knew she was capable of much more. After the 2018 season, she took some time off to figure things out. Many assumed that she needed a break from the rigors of the season. But what they didn't know was that this break would last 2 years, that she wouldn't play another game for the Lynx, that she would check out of basketball forever. Back in Minnesota, Moore had met a man named Jonathan Irons. He was serving an unjust 29-year sentence for burglary and armed robbery. Moore learned that he was actually innocent, and that the real robbers were his stepbrother and friend. Despite this evidence, the authorities refused to reopen the case. So Moore decided to take matters into her own hands. That's when she got the call. She was at peace with leaving basketball behind because she realized she had a bigger mission. She started working on getting Irons released. She traveled to meet with him. She lobbied politicians. She worked with private investigators and with lawyers. Irons was hopeful, but not optimistic. After 23 years in prison, he had seen hope dwindle again and again. But Moore wasn't like the other celebrities who had contacted him before. She didn't just want to help get him famous or raise awareness. She wanted to see him set free. She was committed. As time went on, she became obsessed. In the beginning, Moore would visit Irons every month. But once the pandemic hit, she could only talk to him through phone calls. She said, "I do and think any amount of preparation can fully prepare you for the magnitude of what that means and what that looks like. Talking to someone you care about most in the world through a phone and having to say your goodbyes, not knowing if you're ever going to see them again, or if you will, how long you have to wait." Moore put everything she had into the mission, and she started seeing progress. First, a local judge overturned Irons' conviction, stating that it was against the interests of justice. The case was sent back to the circuit court, where the prosecution admitted that there was reasonable doubt about whether Irons was guilty. And finally, after all these years, he was released. When Irons stepped outside the prison gates, he was greeted by the biggest welcome home party one could ask for. There were cameras flashing everywhere. Reporters were trying to interview him. And there she was, the woman who made all of this possible, Maya Moore. But you know what? He didn't know she was coming. She had kept it a secret. But then, just as planned, they locked eyes. She was crying, and he was smiling. And in that moment, they both knew it was all worth it. As for the media, they were confused. They thought she was crazy. Why would a superstar athlete leave the game at the peak of her career? Why would she give up millions of dollars? Well, she didn't do it for the money or the fame, but to do what was right. She was an athlete who dominated on the court. She was a role model for young girls everywhere, and now she was a hero in real life too. Here's how ESPN described it. In the annals of professional sports, few stories are as powerful as Maya Moore's quest to free Jonathan Irons, a wrongful conviction case that she aggressively championed over 2 seasons away from the WNBA. Moore, a 4-time WNBA champion and 2-time Finals MVP, used her platform, influence, and celebrity to bring attention to the case, traveling to Missouri to visit Irons, corresponding with him regularly, and enlisting legal counsel to review the evidence against him. In the end, her commitment paid off. Moore had become known as the real-life superhero, not just the one they called her in the media. And she didn't just fight for Irons, she fought for everyone else who might be wrongfully accused and sentenced. Her return. When Moore first announced that she was taking time away from basketball, people were shocked. At the time, She was the face of the Lynx. She was one of the best players in the league. And suddenly, she just disappeared. Fans were confused, but the organization was scared. They thought they'd lost her forever. However, when she came back, it was clear that nothing was the same. Moore was no longer the superstar they had before. She struggled to find her rhythm. And although she still played well, she was nowhere near her dominant self. For many, it was hard to understand why. Why did such a talented player suddenly underperform? Well, nobody knew except for Moore and those closest to her. They knew she wasn't playing with the same passion. The fire that burned inside of her was now redirected. When she was asked about her future in the WNBA, she said, "I love basketball and I love my teammates, and the whole organization has been so supportive throughout this time. But there are other things I feel compelled to do, and I have to honor that." She had found her true calling, and nothing was going to stop her. But her story doesn't end here. After the 2020 season, Moore announced that she would retire from the WNBA. Now, you could imagine the shockwaves this caused. A superstar player suddenly decides to retire in her prime. People were angry. They felt betrayed. They argued that she should have retired before taking time away. But in reality, she was just being honest. She knew she couldn't keep playing. Her heart wasn't in it anymore. Besides, she had accomplished it all in basketball. She had achieved everything she could, and now it was time to move on. When she announced her retirement, the Lynx organization was heartbroken, but they respected her decision. They understood that she had followed her heart and they were proud of her for it. A year after her retirement, Moore was named one of the top 25 greatest WNBA players of all time. And in 2022, she was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. However, she wasn't just recognized in the basketball world. She became a global hero. When she walked onto the court to accept her award, she was greeted with a standing ovation. The crowd cheered her name. The announcer introduced her as a champion for social justice. And as she looked around the arena, she saw former coaches, teammates, and friends. Some were crying, others were hugging. All of them were proud. Finally, she spoke. This is what she said. "My hope is that my story can give you permission to use your story. I'm telling my story not to speak for anybody but myself and my truth, but to hopefully give others the permission and inspiration to do the same and realize that we have the ability to impact change." So this is the story of Maya Moore, the hero who left the court to save a life. And although she may be gone, her legacy will live on forever. Thank you for watching this long story video. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any new stories.